This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.
You don't mind me asking, how's this working out for you? You miss being a cop?
I do standard PI stuff. Sneak and peek, missing errors.
Whatever you could find out about my family.
Surveillance, consulting.
Take this. I'm paying you to conduct an investigation.
Just to be clear, I don't work for you.
Understood.
Is that all you did? Switch to another search engine?
Yeah, it's called Google.
I have no choice but to declare a mistrial.
Rogers hired a hitman, shot me twice and left me for dead. What I really want is to personally hunt him down and end him.
I am so sorry. I just wonder what went wrong for Rogers to get off.
It's not over yet. We have to nail this guy, Harry.
Yeah, we do. But we do it my way this time.
Your way.
Courts, due process, justice system. Your way didn't work.
No, it didn't. Okay, your way.
Shall we proceed with the plan?
Let's do it.
Rogers was cooking up a scheme that had a very steep buy-in.
Billions of dollars on the line. People will do anything to get their hands on it.
What is this?
House cleaning.
This guy's Harry, not to be trifled with.
Neither am I.
Harry, what are you up to?
Better you don't know.
Ain't this the life, boy? Take me through this one more time.
You steal the signal, you toss it to me. Kablooey.
I worry about you.
I worry about you out on the mean streets of East Hollywood.
Still a mission for you, isn't it? Everybody counts. Nobody counts.
This is just the beginning.
We got the one, the only Jade Seaberry from Diverse Toons on YouTube.
Yes, how are you?
I'm delightful. How about yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. It's like, man, it's a crazy year, but I hope there's someone out here who can keep us all stable.
Hey, yes, right? It's been an interesting day.
Craziness. So, for those who don't know, I've been fortunate enough to have Miss Seaberry on before. She hosts Diverse Toons with Monique Henry Hudson, which talks about diversity in animation, but also just career opportunities.
Well, yeah, in the animation industry, in special effects, we featured voiceover artists.
Yep.
We're a staple at this point at San Diego Comic-Con and WonderCon. So yeah, you can check us out on all the social media platforms, just Diverse Toons, one word. And yeah, just check us out.
What's been your personal favorite convention experience?
I would say in the heart of the pandemic, I had never been to San Diego Comic-Con, so it was with the masks and everything. It was really low key.
That's
before
good.
They opened everything back up, and we were like distancing and everything else. It was like bare bones. Everybody had the mask on. You had to stay 6 feet apart, everything. And I was like, wow, this is interesting.
We can make this work.
And then when everything opened back up, and I was like, wow, this is like 5 times the size of what it was last year.
Right?
And I was like, this is how it is usually. I was like, well, I was blown away. But I liked it when it was like, oh, we're going to limit the number. We're going to like dumb it down. Everybody was there from like, I actually was able to get in to the Marvel panels and things like that. Now it's like the lines are wrapped around blocks and blocks and blocks. You can't even get into the Marvel panels. So I was like, wow. I was really lucky that 1 year when they opened back up after the pandemic.
Compared to now, yeah.
Well, not open back up, but it was like, they were like, these are the restrictions. These are, we're gonna open up, but we're gonna still keep it safe. So I was like, I was really lucky to like experience that. And I was like, oh wow, but this is how it usually is. This is how crazy it is. I was like,
seeing the different
your mind blown
fluctuations. Yeah,
exactly.
What drove me crazy was when I would go to different conventions would be the VIP lines, but sometimes you wouldn't see the label and it's like, oh drat.
Exactly. No, this is where the line actually exactly. And it's like 5 blocks down.
You're not going to be able to talk to the guy. The most you'll be able to say is say hi or sign this. Exactly. Reread it if you're still unsure.
Yep.
Call someone.
It's definitely an experience.
Well, at least there's a lot of positivity, and I do like how you bring a voice to, again, a lot of animation, as well as just showing how it's telling cultural stories. It used to be there was this entertainment, and then there was like educational stuff, and you've been discussing all kinds of cartoons that have a lot of very electrifying, social commentary, and and tonight, we're talking about, a procedural, but I also would just love to get your take on, just how that whole subgenre has kind of evolved. It used to be here are the private lives of private eyes and detectives. Then there was a lot of them that had the so-called, propaganda where you're like, yeah, that doesn't happen in real life, but it's cool as a superhero show. And then there were others where you're like, I like the legal stuff a little better than the investigation stuff, and then vice versa. Like the political stuff's not interesting, but how these guys investigate and are partners is cool. But so, were you familiar with the whole Michael Connelly thing? I only kind of knew him as kind of another John Grisham type, where he just
I didn't really, because I don't really read the books.
No, it's
which
fine.
I should, but just like I love The Walking Dead, but I never read the comic books. So it's like, oh, okay. So I get, but I feel like if I did read the books, then I wouldn't be interested in the show, because then I would get bogged down in how different the books are from the actual series. So
fortunately, it's kind of like James Patterson, where you can kind of make up your mind on how everyone looks and everything. But I actually didn't put 2 and 2 together. It's like, because I had read some of them, like City of Bones, and I thought, okay, interesting how they're showing how the CSI unit comes in, and then the detectives come in, and then the media comes in, and some of them are reporting just the facts, and others are going, haywire with let's blow this, and you're like, so, and then so I always took it as kind of a modern day kind of Chinatown. It's like, yes, this is more than just, I fear that someone is at play and gonna probably poison the well, but like there's all kinds of other stuff. Well, what made you say I'm gonna take the binge? I'll do a few of these each night.
I was hooked from the beginning when I first saw the trailer for season 1, because I love crime dramas. So I was like, I'm in. Like, put a good crime drama in front of me, and I'm hooked. Like Law and Order, all of them. I'm just addicted to a good crime drama. So if it looks good, I'm gonna watch. So season 1, as soon as the trailer dropped, I was like, oh, this looks interesting. I was like, okay, I'll give this a chance. And what I loved about Harry was he looked batty. He looked like he was so crazy. He reminded me of House. Just that
I
first
think that's a
initial
good
poster.
contrast. Yeah,
Yeah,
because I had seen him
he looked menacing. He looked like he could be a criminal.
I had
So
seen him
I
in
didn't
all
know if he was
the.
like gonna be a crooked cop or like I didn't know
Yeah,
what they were trying to do to him. Because that
he's
poster looks creepy.
yeah,
when
he's
it
just
first
got
came
that
on.
poster. You don't know. I didn't know what I was gonna get. I'm like, is this like Falling Down or Taxi Driver? He's on the
Yeah.
edge, or and like you, I do like all kinds of crime stuff. Everything from the Power and Ray Donovan franchise to,
Exactly.
and this was kind of for me more like the Shield or the Closer, where it's
Yes.
like they're showing
Very
how
much.
the
Yeah.
LAPD is scandal ridden, and oh my God, comeback role for Mimi Rogers. She's a civil rights activist
Right?
turned,
Yeah, it was
defense
like
attorney.
he loved to hate her and then he loved to love her, and it was just like, okay.
The way they
Like,
introduce each other, and you're like,
yeah,
there's
frenemies turned besties. It was weird.
yes, you're like, there's
That was like
no
a
way they're gonna get along. There's
full turnaround character.
is like, and then once they actually sit down, is like, so there's a bit of Michael Mann, and I'm not saying it's necessarily like the De Niro Pacino like sit down for coffee thing,
Yeah.
but they do pick each other's brains, and
Yeah, they have a mutual respect for each other. That's one thing. They know that
right.
the other is very good at their job. So it's like, and they know that they, at the end of the day, they each have a job to do, and
yes,
they're really good at their jobs. So whether they hate it's not that they hate the other person, but it's like they each have horrible clients.
Yes.
So
Oh my God.
they each but they know that, okay, I have to destroy you on the stand. And then you may hate me for doing it, but you still respect me for doing my job to the best of my ability. So I think once they come down off their high horse and, drop the egos, then they both just have to realize that. And that's what,
Bingo.
That's what it boils down to.
No, very true, very true. And I recognized all kinds of actors as like, oh yeah, I saw that person on LA Law. The CSI guy was very fascinating, old wise man. And then there was a bunch of other people. I'm like, yeah, they've been on other Dick Wolf, Steven Bochco stuff, like NYPD Blue. But the perfect casting of the Lieutenant Bellet's, I'm like, yeah, I'm vaguely, much like Welliver, I've seen Amy Aquino in a lot of stuff, and she's done all kinds of Italian and Hispanic kind of roles, and it's like,
they mix like a good mixture of like old school people that you haven't seen in a long time. Like when they brought in Erica Alexander, who everybody knows from like Living Single Days.
Sitcom
and then
queen,
they brought in John Marshall Jones from Smart Guy. Like, we're like, wait, what? Like, how do you bring in like the dad from Smart Guy? So it's like they made sure they played from like iconic characters like Lance Reddick, and they made sure, okay.
Rest in peace.
Yes, rest in peace. So sad. And
he
then
was my other go-to guy. I'm like, okay, I loved you and Jamie Hector. Well, I didn't love Hector, but he was a good actor on The Wire.
Yeah, he was a good partner for him.
Absolutely, and
he was definitely a good partner.
And having Crate and Beryl, oh, now that's just rich.
Yes, they were the perfect iconic comedy duo that you needed. The old school iconic duo to like bring you that old school cop knowledge. Bingo. And like every now once and again drop the missing piece of the puzzle that you needed. Yes. Like, oh, we used to do that 2 decades ago, and you're like, what? So we used to do that back in the day. Like, you don't notice, Harry, you don't notice.
Right.
And like just drop the knowledge at the right time.
Bingo.
And always talk about retirement, that they were never gonna. We know they never retired. All of a sudden,
if they do that, well, I thought that was so rich how one of them gets suspended because they're in a car accident because they're past their prime, and then again, it's just like 2 old geezers that got nothing better to do. They got no life. Right? They're still close friends. They're like, yeah, it's either this or I sit on the sofa and order pizza. It's like, so
exactly. You gotta have some comedic duo in all of this heavy drama and action. So something to lighten the mood every now and then, and that's what they were there for.
I was fortunate enough to interview Beryl actor
really?
Troy Evans, and so plenty of stories from he gets recognized from Ace Ventura and ER, and then how he got like a DUI or something, so that wrecked his, you know, credentials for a while, so it was hard to get a job.
Yeah,
And
he had to
then
lay low.
realizing like, hey guys, I was the former military guy turned character actor. I'm not going to be trouble on your set. I just was drunk once upon a time. But the crate guy was wild because I'm like, I've seen that guy play so many assholes. I've seen him always be a bad guy, and he's known to always sunny guys. As like one of the guys is, I think Charlie's like a strained dad. So, but for once, he's not being a douchebag. He's being an actual like okay. But I like how you say like it is like we know without them even saying a word. Like Billets is like, hey, no cowboy activity here, fellas.
I was thinking about that the other day because I was watching a movie on Netflix. And I was like, wait a minute, he's all of a sudden a bad guy in the last like 5 films I've seen. And I was like, how did he get typecasted as that character? Because he used to be like always like the sidekick best friend.
He just has kind of the look. Yeah.
And now he's always typecasted as like a bad guy, and I'm like
bomber, number 5.
Maybe he gets paid more money as that guy now, because I'm like, I wonder why he changed his image as that now.
It's how you look, like if you don't.
I was like, that's so interesting.
If you don't have the Charlize Theron, Brad Pitt look, it's very easy for people to have you be the homeless guy or bank robber number 5, So. Michael Pena had a funny interview years ago. I remember watching on Conan. And he was like, "Can I not be gangbanger number 5?
Thank you.
Can I not be in the lineup?"
What? But him too. He used to be like the funny, like sidekick, and then all of a sudden, like that changed, and I wonder what makes directors be like, "Oh, I'm gonna change you from like." Sidekick best friend to like gangster.
And I saw a bunch of alums from 24 on here, including a lot of the other foot cops, and I think that's just it. Like same thing, and you're like, oh, there's no way Dylan McDermott or Kiefer Sutherland are going to be an anti-hero or a good guy. It's like we've always seen him be the idiot or the creepy boyfriend, and I think someone is just like, just let him play outside that. And I think that's the thing with Titus Welliver. You can, depending on how he's framed, you can either make him look handsome or you can make him look like, the creepy neighbor. So I think that's just it. There's like, because he's unpredictable, we're going to play on that. And it's interesting how other people have gone back to see his other stuff. And they're like, he was on Good Wife. He was on Lost.
Because I'm like, how does that flip just switch in a...
I would always see him,
like
but
after one role, then the rest of their career is just that.
Yeah, I'd always see him as like a weapons dealer or like a heckler or a desk sergeant guy. Or he was really good as the doctor on NYPD Blue. He's like, here's the truth.
Exactly.
But I like how you made the Dr. House connection, because it is one of those. You're like, when you see him, you're like, oh, it's a bad shooting. Is this guy going to be an asshole? And you're like,
that's what I'm saying, because
he had a bad day.
He's a brilliant detective. Like, first and foremost, he's brilliant. And he's, complicated to say the least, but you would want him to be working on your homicide if you were killed, because he's relentless and he's always going to get his perk. However, but he's haunted. He's textbook mommy issues.
Yes.
Like, but I feel like any little boy whose mother was a prostitute and was killed at 11 years old would have mommy issues. And that trickled down in his life to like relationships with his ex-wife then his daughter. And but it is what it is.
I love how he finally goes after like that one crook who's like had connections and is like, and I did murder your mother and she will always be a whore. And he's like, he's having to stop himself from stepping over the ounce. And then when
over the line, exactly, from beating him.
When he gets him in, when the guy is finally arrested, he just lets it out. He just starts letting out silent cry and like, see, that's the right answer. I hate it when you portray the guy as like Mr. Invincible, macho.
Exactly, macho.
Like, no,
ex-Marine.
This is your mother, and that's just it too. Yeah, I like it. We sometimes we know he's a Marine, but it's actually put to good use. Like so.
Yeah.
If I had to pick a favorite moment, I love in one of the later seasons, I think it's 3 or 4. I'm going to say 4. Sorry, guys, I have my notes, but I'm not going to take them out right now. But I love this show to death. I love when he's got a reliable dog, and he's got like unwritten command. He's like go hide, and he just goes and gets a shotgun, and he's like getting ambushed at his apartment complex.
At his house. Yeah, that was season 5, I want to say.
I think you're right. It was either
when
4
they
or 5,
ambushed his house. Yeah,
but I like how we is like he's not worried about hey, and I I like how he still has to have an ongoing issue of my building codes aren't up to speed.
Yeah.
Is like so, but that's where his military training comes in. He gets all stealthy and he's like, no, I'm gonna have the dog draw him in, and then without risking his
into the kill box. Yep.
Right, into the kill box. I love that. Yeah, and it's again, everybody has something to do because, like you say, like Crate and Barrel are like the Finn and Munch of SVU of the show. They're the Laurel and Hardy.
Exactly.
And then Billets is having to, do everything. She's having to reorchestrate the unions who aren't playing ball. She's having to make sure everyone had a good shooting. She's having to tell the internal affairs guys like, yeah, I got this under control. And then like you've heard, I listen to so much true crime, so I like how they tackle the angle. Is like, yeah, this Lieutenant Billet, Captain Cooper asshole. He's a sexist. He's trying to make you quit.
Exactly.
And you finally got some dirt on his utter foul play, and his ass is out here. But it's like, yeah, that was so hard to do because like I've heard so many horror stories on how. Sometimes if cops, come home and they drink too much and leads to inevitable divorces, they'll harass their exes. So I liked how they just are like, hey, we got to police the police, and we got also, but just how they go about just like making sure is like, hey, I got a warrant for this and I got a warrant for that. And so when I was even telling other security guards or cops that I think, or even just crime genre people in general, I think you would like this. Or like, so what sets it apart? I'm like, well, it's interesting because like, not Daniel's, Lance Reddick's character on here. It's interesting how they show him getting into politics and he's having to kind of play ball with that. He's not bad necessarily,
having a baby and everything.
Yes,
trying to have a life in general.
Steve Irving, the recreationalist, and he's having to question his principles, and of course they don't line up with Bosch, who's like, I don't do politics, and then all the other guys are like,
he's like, keep me out of that.
I love in that final season when in season 6 where it's like they're like, I'm gonna fire you when you get back, and Bosch is like, no you won't, because I fucking quit.
Exactly.
I'm like, that's awesome.
He's like, nope, I don't care.
Because there's some other good shows like Power and The Shield had done some good ones on the underbelly of politics and how greasy and some of the Suits is now trending. Another show Titus is on.
I can't wait to see what they do with Suits LA, because the original Suits was so good. So Suits LA is going to be under so much criticism. It's like can't mess it up.
Well, and even with the featured cameos, you're like, I liked Pearson's spinoff, but it didn't get another shot. But
Pearson was so good, and it's just like they didn't give it a chance.
I feel like I'm like,
I feel like it needed to happen right after Suits ended to like really get the full court press that it needed, and it just it waited too long. I think that's why.
Absolutely, yeah.
It just waited way too long.
I mean, and again, there's so much. I mean, they got some semi-knowns and unknowns, so I'm like, okay, that's nice, but I don't want it to be like the new CSI where it's like, everybody's like a featured like extra. They're not. They already signed on
Gabriel, so
right.
Hopefully he's like overseeing everything. Like this is like his new law firm. Like he's a silent partner or whatever. Like he's kind of like beyond it. He's like, I'm just the owner, so I don't really need this. Like he's gonna be in the office every now and then, but he's like, maybe because I don't see him being like, oh, I'm running to be a judge, or
that'd be
that
too
was
much.
Like beyond him. He wasn't into like politics or anything, so I can't see him doing that. I can see him saying, "Oh, I opened up a law firm here. I opened up a law firm there. I'm franchising all over the place."
I could see him doing a TED
doing
Talk.
something like that. Just to be like, "Oh, I could do whatever I want at this point in my life."
He could speak at a graduation, but yeah, and I'm okay if he's mentoring some of the other guys, but yeah, I don't want it to be like a copy. But at the same time, I also don't want them to be just like stretching it out to where it's just too formulaic. And I saw a lot of Maddie hate by fans for this show. I'm like, oh, good grief! Well, where else does the character go?
Yeah.
She said, I'm interested in law enforcement, especially after mom dies. It's like, and I saw other people are like, I just don't buy that. I'm like, well, this is seriously no different than how they showed how the different keywords, police codes, and training of regular officers. Because that's the other thing, too. Everyone goes cop. I'm like, okay, what kind of cop? Detective or a regular, foot patrol?
Yeah, and this is going to be the last season that's coming out.
So, yeah.
So they said, okay, this is the third and final season. So, okay. So, but it already even got renewed before season 2 even started. So I don't even know what the writers are going to write, like what they even had in store. So yeah, this should be interesting. Because how do you go out with a bang? I don't know.
I'm hoping for the best, but yeah, they should have just called it seasons, 7 through 10, or actually no, 8 through 11 technically, but yeah. But they were doing that because But
it is really cool. I mean, I like her whole group of friends and stuff like that. So
Jeff Russo's
Bosch Legacy, it was a really nice, new era for Maddie and stuff. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom Bernardo is really good. I like how Jeff Russo, who's scoring everything from Altered Carbon to Star Trek Picard, has very moody trumpets to accompany the suspense. Eric Overmeyer, who has written for Homicide, Man in the High Castle, Treem, The Wire, and New Amsterdam, I thought was really good at.
And seeing Maddie come into her own with solving the rape case, and then her relationships and everything. I like that. It's really cool.
They do a good job of just like, it's way more plausible. It's like, okay, so here's all these different scenarios. Here's how they round up the guys instead of just you're gonna let the guy do his, semi-impossible read the room. Shrek is like, no, he's gonna read the room, but he's also going to encounter them when he can and just think outside the box instead of just what are the chances. This is getting personal, and the serial killer kidnapping was really shocking, but an interesting way to. And whenever anyone, again, like, kudos to all the Foley and everything. When people get shot, you're actually freaked out. You're like,
exactly.
God, that sounds like I'm actually hearing a cahoot, and I'm going to have to duck.
Exactly. And losing one of her academy mates, like right off the back, like that. Is going to help her early in her career, because at least she knows what it's like to lose somebody that was, close to her, that she went out drinking with every night and stuff like that. That's going to help her early in her career. Yes. And then, she goes to her father when she needs to, but she's not using him as a crutch.
Bingo.
She's not being like, Dad, I need you every single day. She just went there to help with the grieving process and was like, can I spend the night? And then she was like, you know what? No, I do need to go home. Yes. I need to go home, and I need to face this, and I need to, get back on the
ourselves to death.
And I need to figure this out on my own.
And
so even he was like, I don't think you need to be going back to your apartment right now.
Yeah.
She was like, no, I got this. So
no, that's a good point. I dug how some of the other casts they had, like Phil Morris as the shady security contractor fixer. Yep. I'm like, oh my God, that dude, that's Jackie from Seinfeld. That's
exactly
our number one go-to voice actor. That kudos to any time they had some of the villains. I mean, there was everything from military, turned master thief, to a crooked cop circle, to some other shady security guards, and some other white supremacists. It was all kinds of, and then serial killers, just trying to be, infamous. But basically the next, OJ type case where they're just like they're on the 6 o'clock news and they're getting all the attention they yearn for. What's his name? I had never seen God, what's his name? Stephen Chang before, but he was great as Mo, the tech expert. I'm like, see, this adds up a lot, and everybody has something to do. It's never we had too many characters and one of you is going to be written out.
And then Anthony Michael Hall. He pops up on the strangest things.
He really is. He's always
like everywhere. I'm like, okay.
It was
once
cool.
He came back into acting, like I want to say like 5-6 years ago. He runs the gamut on the different types of shows and movies he comes on. I'm like, what? He just, and he plays all different types of roles. He plays good guys, bad guys, killers, everything.
He's grown out of the Breakfast Club thing, but you never knew
but
it was going to be that way.
He comes back on a range of things. He'll be on a kid's show, then he'll be playing a murderer on Lifetime, then he'll be playing he'll be playing on a big blockbuster in a small role. It's weird. He'll be on everything. He takes all the different kind of checks. He does not care.
Yeah, Dead Zone, Psych. I recognize some of the other people there. There was the other crooked cop was Max Martini, who everyone knows from everything from Pacific Rim to The Unit, and then they had Jessica Camacho as one of the other hacker gals. It was like, see that they always go for these people who have been here forever, but it's not as like you don't just look the part, but like you can let them play with this. And since all TV's now 10 episodes, no one gets tired of these roles right away to where they're like, they can easily sneak in and say, hey, can I do a play, on Broadway for 3 weeks and then come back? It's easier to manage. It's not as good so much with residuals, but hopefully the strikes, comes to some better, solution.
Yeah, that's true.
But
when Kate Burton was on this was the first thing I saw her in since the scandal went off the air.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, they were getting some of the people from the Sandra Rhimes house. I'm like, I know I've seen you play a congressperson or troubled parent, and I think it also helps that as long as you watch like 3 episodes back to back, you won't be too lost. Yeah, because it's easy to get lost, but they have awesome recaps instead of just previously on. It's nothing fancy. It's just like all
exactly.
I thought Mimi Rogers deserved at least a primetime Emmy though. Just
because
it's been forever, but like I mean, what a realistic recovering or physically rehabilitating,
everything.
She's buying a gun for protection,
and then being implicated.
Yes, actually doing some spying on some of the guys. Like, jeez, but also kudos to how Maddie's having to find out some of the other bad apples in her department and find a way to. And
then like, she had to be suspicious of everybody. She didn't know who to trust, and then sneaking behind their back. And then she was like, "Oh my gosh, should I go to IA?" And it was just, and then and her father was like, "Girl, you don't know if who's involved. First of all, get some more evidence. You got to be careful. You got to watch your back."
Yeah, and
can't just be going to anybody.
I think she's gonna have to change her surname just because there's just so much harassment. You're like, you're related to that one guy who's now a private eye and
But then it's like I feel like everybody already knows her anyway because she basically grew up in there. So it's like I don't know if that'll work.
It probably wouldn't, but I'm still I do find it wild how
I mean, she probably should use her mother's maiden name because I feel like then if you change it to your mother's name, everybody pretty much knows your mother too because your mother was an FBI agent. So
yeah, that's
why
they got
your mother's name either.
Anytime the feds show up and they're always like, "Bosch, what the hell are you doing here?" It's always just so wild.
I wouldn't use my mother's name either. So then it's like, okay, do you use your mother's maybe a stepfather's name? I don't know.
I don't know the solution, but I still applaud how it's like. Okay, so Bosch is like, hey, there is no limit to the politics at this office, and there's a price on everything, and my price is I'm now going to investigate all these guys who had lousy investigations and who, screwed up, giving justice for victims and everything. And
Exactly.
it's just cool to having to kind of have a decipher and breakdown of the whole system instead of just it's all good but it's not perfect. It's like, no, there's a lot of bad, and we gotta
weed out everything.
Yeah, you gotta. What do you do when you bring a container home? And, you empty all the drinks and then you make sure to clean out the actual bucket. It's just,
Exactly.
and it's I do also like how like you're not having to predict the beats, because like there's all with each of these conspiracies is like, okay, so we're going to get to the money man or the financer eventually, but we still got to figure out who's the actual guy pulling all the strings. And then we got to figure out, I mean, the terrorist web was complex because, we had to follow Bosch getting help from another Fed who actually admired him. And then, it was like, by the way, there's a bomb in the actual courtroom. Everyone get the hell out. And that was just a hell of a way to end it, while Billets was also having to clean out her department and stop her other officers from harassing each other. It's like, see, that I when you go from plot A to plot B, I never feel like it's rushed or uneven. It's like, I really can tell that these guys all thought this out. They had enough inspiration from real life stuff and supervision. I can follow the guys and know what they do instead of that guy. I don't know what he does. I don't know his name. It's like, it gives me a better idea of everything also. And it's like, it without just being of course they're not going to do any paperwork. It's like, yeah, no, we're going to see him do paperwork.
Yeah, that's true, because he's always like, oh, I can do the paperwork. Like, you go home to your family, J. Edgar. So I like that. Like, because what other show do you actually see them talk about?
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna actually sit here and do
it's off
paperwork.
screen,
Never,
or only what the plot suffices. Yeah, it's like,
that's true. That makes sense.
They do a good job of, instead of just photos
making it look real
at their home, like we would actually see them scratching their head in their cubicles. And it was done in a better way, kind of like The Wire, where it's like, okay, so this is driving them crazy. They've had who knows how much caffeine, and they're still not getting anywhere. So, but we as the viewer are watching them say, how about this scenario, and let's go with this instead of just.
And then they get in trouble one time for like doing the paperwork wrong or missing out or something on the paperwork.
There was a bit of that, and I thought that was good, because like that, instead of just that it was a plausible real life consequence, it was also just like a good way to kind of weigh in the plot. It's like, okay, they overstepped, or you're suspended from, this is out of your jurisdiction, but someone else can go here and check on this guy who's a bad apple. And again, the bad guys are all in the flesh, it's like they're everything from, they're not just shady nightclub owners. A lot of them are also just other law firms with questionable practices. They're also, just campaign fundraisers who are with offshore accounts. It's like, it's all kinds of stuff where you're just like, okay. And sometimes there are people who, are related to someone the officers arrested years ago. And it's like, of course they got a grudge. And so this is why they're sending you all these threatening phone calls. And, but it was interesting just seeing the whole thing outside the system, because it's not encouraging to go all vigilante. It's just, I call it the Captain Kirk maneuver. It's just like, think outside the box and just not, nothing is concrete and nothing is safe either, but also you have no support from the feds. So, and there is, I do like when they were going after those very violent, private security guys and bodyguards turned robbers, and they're having to,
the bank, the bank heist with the crooked cops. Versus the Russian mobsters,
the Russian mobsters, and the crooked cops, and then the ex-security guy who's shady, and they're all having to corner him in like his own cabin in the woods, and they're like, he's got dynamite. This guy has dynamite. How are we gonna ambush him? And
And then he just pops out with a grenade after they confront Nash at the cabin.
It's
and
a
it's just like, where in
murder-suicide.
the world did you get a grenade from? Like, I mean, I know people buy grenades, black market and stuff, but that is just like, really, really? Like, come on now.
And
just popping out with grenades. And J. Edgar got a shotgun.
Yeah.
and Harry has his pistol. Like, where in the world you come from with a grenade?
Yeah, it's... But to their credit, they were at least more suspenseful, and I never felt like the bad guys had an easy way out. It wasn't like a lesser... Because, like, I like Criminal Minds, but, like, there were some lesser seasons of it where, I kid you not, everybody would just, like, do a murder-suicide, like, they'd shoot themselves. I'm like, that's very lazy writing.
Yeah.
It happens,
That's what I talked about, what was it? Not Criminal Minds, but, CSI. I recently binged CSI, and I'm like, why is it that I binged CSI Miami, I binged CSI, and I binged CSI New York? I just couldn't wrap my head around.
It wasn't very good.
I was like, what is going on?
It had a more respectable cast,
but I feel like y'all disrespected my city, but okay.
It had very anticlimactic outcomes where you're like, after all that trouble, that's the only thing you can come up with. Like, I remember they were going. They had one.
But I feel like in CSI, every time they got close to like a serial killer, he ended up killing himself, and I'm like, what is going on? Like,
or just confessing on the spot and then killing himself, and you're like, okay,
I'm like, what is this?
That's very lazy.
Every time they cornered him, multiple serial killers, mind you. I'm like,
and you need to.
They just committed suicide. I'm like, I've never seen this on any show in my life. I'm like, what is going on?
There needs to be a build up. Like, if there's not going to be a payoff,
I'm like, mind you, we've hunted you for like multiple episodes, like half a season.
Yep.
Through other cases and everything, and I'm like, that's it.
Well, and BOSCH does good with using the science. Like, well, CSI always was kind of like, this is a live action, superhero show. They can do anything, which is not the case in real life. Not just anybody can do all the, DNA testing, and it's not going to be done in 24 hours.
I'm like, so I sat through hours and hours of DNA testing, evidence gathering, everything like that for you to finally catch the killer, for you to kill yourself? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, I can't.
It doesn't work.
Is too much.
I couldn't do the reboot either because it was like way more risque and over the top, and I'm like, and no one had any charisma, and I'm like, see, you should have just brought everybody who we liked back, and then
funny.
had a serialized story instead of just, by the way, whatever happens. I think NCIS is good at always doing it because it's always kind of action comedy and it's military related stuff. But don't get me wrong, there's plenty of other mystery shows where I had to shake my head at and be like, that's
and be like, what is going on?
I don't know what reality you're going for, and it's not good, campy, or serious. I love Bones the most because it would have all kinds of nutty stuff, and they had to connect it.
I did binge Bones too, because I don't know why I just thought it was like,
it's kind of like
I don't know, maybe I feel like some of these trailers, like originally when they first came out on television, because all you have to go for is the trailer.
Yes.
And I feel like the trailers just didn't do some of these shows justice. So maybe that's why I didn't originally watch it. That's why I just originally didn't watch CSI.
Well, in all fairness, I didn't like CSI when it was on. I thought it was just gratuitous and over the top. But then in college, I came around to it. I'm like, this is fun, but this is popcorn. While with the other shows,
because I'm not a comedy person. Like I've told you, I'm not a comedy person.
Yes,
I like suspense. I like crime. I like thrillers. I'm not going to sit here and just watch the only comedy, like my kind of comedy. I loved Monk. I loved Psych.
No, that's
those
fine.
are like the only time I watch like comedies, but you see they still had crime in it, so that's why they were solving cases. So
well, it's also hard because comedy often will go for the lowest common denominator, like just have too much tasteless over the top stuff where you're like, that makes me feel dirty.
Like haha funny, like I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you, then that's fine. Like as long as you're not doing it for the sake of doing it, it kind of flows in with the storyline, then that's fine.
Or having everybody be just so inept
so
they're not.
ridiculous that it's not funny. Exactly.
I
Then
like
I'm
some
okay.
of the mockumentaries, but even those have outstayed their welcome to where I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna, well, and the comedy has to really, I mean, because like, we take the crime elements of this away, we at least like how they're going about, like, the plot outcome. That there's a lot
Exactly.
of
The
beats,
storyline, like
and I need that
Bosch
with comedy
and
too. Like,
the
instead of
mother
just
and yeah, it's still a great show regardless. Yeah, it has a plot, it has a story, it has, yeah, exactly.
we're seeing the guy, everybody just go out for like a moment. I mean, there was a funny moment where Maddie was, when she was with her new partner, and I just guffawed, like, uh, she's a movie buff, so she's like,
yeah.
hey, well, they were buying from an actual shop run by character actor Danny Trejo. Like, he created
Oh
his own
yes,
taco shop,
yeah.
and I like how she's naming off Heat, from Dust to Dawn, Spike It,
Yeah, and then she makes fun of him like, how don't you know who Danny Trejo is? Exactly.
right,
Like,
and it's just like, and then
what is wrong with you? Like, are you living under a rock? Like, you don't know who Danny Trejo is?
but
Like,
it was kind of an example. She's like, yeah, I haven't seen any of those movies. It's funny.
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
it's kind of a catch-22. Like, you can have just like people who kind of know your face, but they literally have not seen your work, so they probably know your
That's
doppelganger.
true. Yeah, that's true. I was like, she should have just Googled him and shown her a picture, and then
Yeah,
that probably would have
you've
known.
seen him in something, maybe.
I don't think anybody on this planet doesn't know who Danny Trejo is.
He's
Like,
been in too
what?
much.
Like, no, that's crazy.
You've seen him in everything, from Modern Family to the Muppets.
Exactly. Like,
Awful
no, that's crazy.
video
Now, you probably didn't know he had all these franchise of shops, because I didn't know that either until like maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah, he took a while to embrace social media, and
Yeah, no, I didn't know until, no, it wasn't 4 years ago, maybe like 5 years ago, because I first went out to LA to go to my mentee's graduation from UCLA, and I was looking up places to go to, and one of his shops popped up, and I said, oh, I knew he had one, but I didn't know he was all over. I didn't know it was like this huge franchise, and it was a ton of them, and I was like, oh wow, he really runs LA. Like, he's all over. I was like, oh, okay.
Right.
And so we stopped at one when we were like on our way back, because her family took me all over. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is really good.
I if I go down there, I mean, and the fact that they're actually, you can tell it's an LA show. Like, they are in corners where I'm like, I can't. I want them to do a season in San Francisco, even though that's outside the jurisdiction.
He's running it out there. You cannot go down.
We're seeing all the hills,
it's everywhere,
all the intrigue. The Veronica gal, who was like a former adult film star, like that, who's involved in a crime ring. That was a cool role for Jerry Ryan. Who many Mortal Kombat and Star Trek people know. But like,
yeah.
Aside from her stretching herself, I liked how all these characters, even if they're in a sultry or gritty backstory, they're not.
Yeah.
I don't have to show you that. Like, this
exactly.
isn't HBO. This is just a gritty show. This is a PG-15 show, and same thing with the crime scene photos. Like, sometimes they're off color, but they're not meant to be gratuitous. They're just trying to be plausible.
Exactly.
And I liked how they introduced the reporter for the LA Times, which is a real paper, by the way, guys. Scott Anderson. I liked how he was used in an unusual way, where Bosch doesn't want to be around him because when he was first seen, he was just kind of reporting everything, including falsely accusing him of corruption, and then he's like, I'm going to use you to my advantage since you're frequenting a lot of blogs.
Exactly. And I think one of the other best like moments was the season 5, the plane flight, where
yes, oh my god,
cover is blown because of the true crime blog.
Yes.
And he pulls the knife out of the cane that he's using as his cover, and then he stabs the smuggler, and then he uses him as the shield. I think that was like epic.
That was really that was one of my more favorite baddies, because like you had to just click with it, and I like how they set it up. He's looking all gritty. Yeah, you got to use Wix, a website, but like And then using the body shield, but then using his most unusual side-by-side people as unusual allies is like, I liked how we backtrack. Is like, okay, how did he go undercover? Okay, now you're all caught up. Now,
Yep,
now you're
that's
back
true.
to the Bill thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just anything. He was having most people like to do a simple, like, it's very cliche for them to do the whole I'm gonna have to kill someone to prove my loyalty. Is like, no, let's just show him using some of the lingo and then finally sneaking around and having to motion to other people is like, there's going to be a drop at this point and it should be safe to, because you will need extra firepower at this point. And the way the guy was recruiting all those criminals was intriguing, especially how he's having to use these shipyards and at abandoned buildings in the middle of nowhere. It's this image by day, but at night we're smuggling in all this other stuff from drugs to weapons.
And I think the most gut wrenching thing that ever happened on any Bosch legacy was the way they killed his ex-wife with the Chinese gangs riding up on the motorcycle. I mean, and he's sitting there trying to give her first aid, and he's lost her again. And that goes back to the trauma. It's like his mother getting murdered when he was 11, and now his ex-wife, who is the love of his life, getting murdered in front of him while they just had lunch, and then she's literally dying in his arms out front, just having been murdered by two Chinese gangsters on motorcycles from the triad or whatever.
And he never forgives the FBI. He's like, you guys fucking killed her. And
exactly, by not protecting her.
And you
it's just it's too much. It's like trauma on trauma on trauma. And it's like his whole life has been thrown together by little traumatic moments.
I'm already a bastard, and now
it's just it's too much.
My daughter.
I think he has these stuff that plays on his mind. And I think that's why he can't ever he'll never be able to find somebody and truly be happy. And that's why he puts all his all into his daughter. Cause he's like, that's all I have left. I just have to protect her. And that's what it boils down to. He has, trust issues. He has everything. And he has mommy issues. And all he can do now is he wants to give justice to women.
Yes.
And to the people the cases he still hasn't solved, those pictures that he had on his computer that now he has in his wallet of the people he still hasn't solved those cases for. And then now he
has a good
has
recurring deal too. And
and then now he just has his daughter to protect. And he's not focused on anything else. He's not focused on finding new love in his life or anything else. He's just like, I got to solve cases and get justice to families. And I have to protect my child. That's it.
And I work for me. I answered to me, and I answered to Maddie. And and I asked her, all these magic questions. Like, are you sure this can be stressful? It's like because they do a good job of harping on the fact it's not just for plot convenience. It is like I mean, it is convenient, yes, from a writing standpoint, but it's like they ironed it out. I mean, that moment when she was having to she was with a friend who got pulled over and they were using her as like, hey, can your dad
get me out of this?
It's like, no, we're not gonna do a double standard. It's like, I'm not gonna be used just because you were driving way too fast and almost hit someone at the school. But then they always kind of show how she's kind of a rebel and she's often exercising. Instead, they gave everyone the right amount of angst and breathing room, and it helped that, again, the wife, who another 24 alum, Sarah Clark's a good actress who's been in everything, but I thought it was cool how, again, she had she's had an unusual lifestyle as well, and they drive each other crazy but respect each other from afar. It wasn't just, they didn't write her as, I'm a bitch and you can't stand me and I'm gonna die. It was like, no, they like each other. It's just this thing backfired. And this was a very, very above anyone's pay grade deal. And I'm glad you brought up the Chinese gang, because all the gangs that they outline, they do a good job of just showing, hey, troubles are brewing. They're going to somehow configure into the whole thing, and you're not going to know when the dominoes come falling.
Exactly. It's crazy.
Because Breaking Bad, for instance, was kind of like the anti-everything show. Like, it's 1 minute it's a dark comedy, the next minute it's showing gangsters, but it's not a rise to power thing. And then you're having to. Yeah. Everybody is not the same person at the end of the whole thing. Is like, yeah, this person was always in it for the money, and this person, you might not have you might have found them annoying, but there's a reason they got this way. It's because this person harmed them,
True.
Off screen. And I get it. Not every show can balance that out. Sometimes they lose interest before you get to the plot twist because it's just so drawn out. And it's like, this one Bosch is really good at just like building up the whole tension. It's like, yeah, this is going to come back to haunt the person. Or
exactly.
Already we got this serial killer that's come back who I didn't think we were going to revisit. I'm glad they revisited because like he's it's not just that he's effectively creepy. It's like, okay, he matters in the long scheme of things because this is going to showcase how he's tried to abuse the legal system to his advantage for a while, and now it was inevitable that he was going to find a way to try and escape and come after Bosch finally because he just wants blood.
That's true.
But to your point, I applaud anybody who can make anything matter. There's nothing worse when you just write in a storyline and then conveniently forget it.
Exactly. How do you feel about his partnership with J. Edgar? Like, I feel like they were amazing partners. That was a fun play on the infamous head of the FBI, and I like how he's like the other J. Edgar. Like, my name is Jerry. Yeah.
I like how he still had some screen time. They didn't. A lesser show would have just written out everybody and restarted from scratch. They're like, nope, everybody's going off doing their own thing.
They were good though. They were good for a lot of years.
Mm-hmm. And
because Harry is no picnic.
No picnic.
always, on the edge of like, we're getting suspended because we've broken the rules. We've gone too far. Yes. But like I said, he's always doing it for the sake of the case, trying to solve who did what. But he's a rule breaker. He's not like, oh, I'm gonna wait for the warrant. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna,
We'll return after these messages.
If you like small-town mystery, crazy news, and wild history, then the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast is for you. Each week, Josh Mills and Wayne McCarty bring you the absolute best Florida has to offer. So if you're looking for a show that's safe for the family, but funny enough to help you escape everyday life, then listen to the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast. That's Florida Men, plural, on Florida Man podcast.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win. On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and foodie debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
When Bosch isn't working for the department and he tries to find a way to like get into the interrogation room, that was a fun kind of thing. Of distracting everybody. It's like, but I loved how they had some cool look at what was his name? J. Edgar had a cool storyline where he was having to do his own solo cases.
Yeah, because with all the times that Harry was on suspension, Lord, he had to figure it out.
Top.
Yeah, like he had, kids and a wife to support and everything else.
They met during the LA riots, which I think it's so cliche, but I think they did it in the best way. It's like, of course they met during the most chaotic moment in America.
Exactly.
They've seen the pot boil.
Exactly, and that's how you know that they were going to be in it through thick and thin, because they had already met through thick and thin. So
thick and thin. He had some wonderful suits from Nordstrom and European shoes.
Yeah,
and
he cared about his style, and Harry did not. Harry was like, "I'm going to put on a shirt and pants and keep it moving."
Yeah. Well, and
when does that show up?
but he's interesting because he and Bosch would do the good cop, bad cop routine, but he would do it in a very effective way where he's like, it looks some people say, oh, it's counterproductive. It's like, yeah, but he got some other info that the other guy wouldn't have gotten.
Exactly, that's true.
He's not doing it to be a, well-intended asshole or anything. Like, he is actually trying to
solve the case at the end of the day.
Brains. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he's always about, solving the case and getting the perk. So that's what matters in the end.
He's the most unscathed out of all these guys because he actually balances out his personal life. I think he had a relationship with a fiance, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was balancing that out, and I loved how he was telling us, like, Harry, girlfriend time. No, I'm not going with you.
He was trying to, get Harry to balance.
Yes.
But Harry just couldn't. He was trying to get Harry to balance the way he balanced, but Harry that was never going to happen. Because once Harry is locked in on something, once Harry gets a case, it's just tunnel vision.
Yeah, tunnel vision. And when during the concrete blonde case, that was interesting because like they were having to, I can't remember if that was in the show or not.
Concrete Blonde, was that the one with the prostitutes?
Oh, my bad. That was one of the tie-in books, I think. Yeah, that was the third novel. My bad. Okay, yeah, I dug how there was all kinds of other just
stuff going on in books.
Yeah,
so tell me about the books. What was the biggest difference between the books and the show?
The books is definitely way more third-person perspective instead of focusing on one subplot at a time.
Yeah.
And I mean, they show kudos to Michael Connelly being in the writer's room, so it was the right kind of compromise. And,
yeah.
I mean, for instance, like season 6 introduces the Jamaican organized crime, and like, okay, how cool that they balance these guys out instead of just having offensive, stereotypes from the 80s.
Yeah, that's true. I love season 6. Season 6 was amazing.
And it wasn't from any of the books, but Connelly approved of it because he's like, I want to give this character that I don't elaborate enough on in the books. Yeah. And it's a tribute to actor Jamie Hector to allow him to revisit his Haitian roots. I'm like, that's awesome. So this is kind of a meta show. And the only other show I can think of that's doing that is Dark Winds.
Yes, I love Dark.
You've seen that? Okay, so for those who don't know, it's a Tony Hillerman adaptation. His
on AMC,
right? Some Breaking Bad people are involved with it. But yeah, I was able to interview his daughter Amy, who oversees the show, and she loved how she was able to give the female characters more depth instead of just be beautiful secretaries. And but the same kind of deal here is like, this is the right kind of compromise. I like how cable has, I don't know why it took so long. So whenever I tell people there's no good TV, I'm like, you got to know where to look. Yes, I get that there are some that are going to drive you crazy, but I feel like finally the 10 episode arc is finally the best way to go about it because people embrace it like a edgy miniseries. And,
yes.
Give everybody a moment in the sun instead of just, well, I don't know what to do with that character.
That's true.
And kudos to him for just much like Dark Winds, Connelly and company do all the right kind of compromises, and they've given everybody something to do. Like when they introduced, what's her name from NYPD Blue?
I can't go all the way back to NYPD Blue days. Let me Google it for you.
Oh no, Jacqueline Abradars. Yeah, she when she joined on Bosch, that was cool because she was another one. I like how she is in a relationship with another officer, and Billets is like, "There's not going to be any tension between you guys, right?"
Oh yeah.
As like, see, I liked how they addressed how, rumors in the workplace.
Get started. Yeah.
Detective Vega is well-meaning, but then intentionally says something that is misconstrued. And it's like, guys, you gotta mind your business. You can't be taking this out of, especially if you're on the same case. So I liked how instead of this something crazy like tough love or anything, it's like, no, here's what we got to do to keep a workplace, mishap from happening, because otherwise then just more disgraceful stuff comes out and I can either fire you or I can reassign you, I don't want to reassign you because you're very talented.
True.
And I liked how they just did it in a way without feeling like, that's too convenient. That's too simple.
Dark is really, really good. I like that it's a little, it's suspense, it's a little thriller, it's a little crime, it gives you all the feels.
I'm glad that we're contrasting it with that, because like like you said, it's a good year for crime shows that are stuff, but it stinks having to tell people is like it's not just on network TV or cable. Like
it's all over
everywhere. It's just, and Hillerman can be hard to get into as well, but same deal. Like I find that one can grow into it. Longmire was similar, and it brought together all kinds of people who were fans of the semi-known actors, as well as people who were both into and not into Westerns were watching it. And same deal, like people.
Western. That's I'm sad that Yellowstone is over, but
Yellowstone's a good contrast. That was another example. It's like everyone was like, "Oh, it's a conservative show." I'm like, it's a show for all kinds of people, and
it sure is. I don't think you even have to put politics into it. It wasn't that political.
Right.
Just because he became governor and they tried to shape it after what was going on in the real world. It wasn't that deep. But
make
it up. No, it wasn't that deep.
I agree. It was always a mix of soap mixed in with 80s kind of over the top kind of action and Western.
Now, if you really like Westerns, you need to watch the prequels. You need to watch 1988 and 1923. 1888 and 1923. Now that's a real Western. That's how they first got started with the actual Yellowstone property.
How all these guys were the same kind of family throughout these different decades.
How they stole the property from the from the indigenous people, but we're not gonna go there.
It was inevitable, and I liked how at least there were some Navajo characters in here without them being one-dimensional. But for God's sakes, producer Sheridan has all 3 other action crime shows on TV as well.
I'm addicted to whatchamacallit? I can't think.
Kingstown or Tulsa.
And no. I like Tulsa too. I like Tulsa King with my guy Stallone, but I love Mayor of Kingstown with my other guy.
Yeah, Ritter.
But no, Zoe Saldana in
Lioness.
In Lioness.
And it's so wild how he had to get rid of some of his writers because they weren't following his instructions. He's like, I can make 5 times my money just locking myself in a writer's room, buying all this private property that we'll use as film sets. I'm like, you go, dude. Yeah.
He did that?
Yeah. He wasn't agreeing with one of the Sopranos writers. And he's like, okay, you're not going to be showrunner anymore, but I'll let you write a few episodes.
Wow. You know what? That doesn't even surprise me because his ego is so. You know what? Let me stop. Anyway.
He was an actor turned producer, and he got to that point where.
Did you see the Yellowstone finale? Everybody was complaining about. I didn't want to watch this finale, this extended finale, to watch you ride on a horse for 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'll just say it this way. I want them to do a spinoff with just the kids.
Yeah, but now they're all spread out. So I mean, Beth and Rip are getting a spinoff, but
yeah, Beth can hold her own because
Beth is a firecracker. I love her.
Oh, and it's just so wild, she clearly was a bully growing up, but then you see how she's all hard and is like, she didn't get this way overnight. She knows all the sins that exist, and she uses all the ranch hands to her advantage versus all these other people who keep backstabbing everybody. And
oh, you mean you want a spinoff with them ass kids?
Nah, just Beth and something else.
Because I mean that would be cool too.
Maybe.
But they already destroyed the house, so they're not putting it together again.
I think that's the other thing. I mean, but this is what I love. There's like 5 different big franchises on TV now, and they're either streaming. I mean, if anything though, like with Bosch, I would love to see him just Titus do just one cameo. He doesn't have to say his name, but we imply that he's Harry Bosch.
Yeah, I know, right? I was thinking that. I was like, there's so many different things that like people have rebooted and they're terrible reboots, but they didn't even have to say they were. It's just because they said that they were that reboot that people hated it. But if they didn't say that they were that reboot, people probably would have loved it. But it's just because that they ruined people's image of a reboot. They would have probably just been fine if they would have called themselves another name.
Right.
And it's like, stop trying to reboot something. Stop trying to replace a beautiful memory that people have in their head of something of a classic that they loved. And it's just call it something else. It's like, why do you have to be a reboot of something? Like, it was perfectly fine. Like when they tried to make the Black Uncle Buck, it didn't last. It didn't even last the whole season. But why did you have to be the black version of Uncle Buck? Uncle Buck is a classic. I love Uncle Buck.
You're right.
Like, why did Michael Epps have to be the black Uncle Buck? If he would have just been, he could have been Buck. He could have been Jerry for all we care. You could have been whatever you wanted to call yourself, and could have just been perfectly fine being an uncle, watching your brother's kids. And nobody would have said anything if you would have called yourself Jerry and been on CBS. And you probably I'm just saying.
Yeah, I feel like half the time just be inspired by.
Exactly. Like, why call yourself anything? Like, why do that to yourself? Even that show on ABC, right? High Potential. When I watched the first episode, I loved it. But then when I saw in the bottom credits, it said inspired by HIP.
Yeah.
French. I went on Hulu and it came up in my suggested shows. 3 seasons of the French show. And then when I realized each episode was exactly the same, it turned me off. I mean, I watched it. That's how I know every episode is exactly the same as the French show.
Oui.
So back in my head, I'm thinking, I hope they don't do this. I hope they don't do that. I hope they don't. I mean, it was still good because it's a great cast. Like, I love the actors that are on it.
It's pretty hard to goof up concept, but yeah, I know what you mean.
But now, like, why did they have to do the exact same show? Like, everything exactly the same way. Like, they couldn't change. Like, the writers couldn't be one original thing. They must have got the exact same script from the French writers, because when I say the exact language is the same, it's crazy.
Yeah, this is what's just so wild too. I've had my share of, like, I didn't like the foreign shows certain movies or shows were based on, and then vice versa. It's like, yeah, but if you've seen one, why do you want to see it again in a different language? You know, it's.
And that's, I'm like, okay, like, that's crazy.
It really is. Yeah.
And then now the foreign Ugly Betty is on from the 80s.
What?
Yeah, and it's on Prime. That like no,
Wow.
it's on. I binged that the other day, and I'm like, I guess they're rebooting it. They said they rebooting the one from the 80s, and so now they have a lot of flashbacks. So they're saying, this is what they're doing, and they're showing what they look like in the 80s. They're doing a lot of flashbacks in between the scenes and stuff like that. So they look really good now. I'm like, oh, they all aged really well. They look good. But I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. So they're rebooting their original Ugly Betty. And so now, because I guess they didn't do that back then. So now we get to see it. So I'm like, oh, this is really interesting.
Well, for instance, I liked the new Frasier because, like, okay, same overall gist. They had new people being added, and then the favorite characters returned, and same crew that was working on it. But sometimes that's not the case either. I've seen my share of they bring the whole thing back, and then you're like, yeah, but the cast and crew just is rusty, you know. Like,
right, exactly.
And so I'm all about just, is the concept good? You know, is it worthwhile, or is it just going to be, you know, tired?
And then I saw on Netflix that they did a reboot of the Munsters.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I didn't even see that advertised back. I saw it came back in 2022, and I'm like, well, there was a lot about like pandemic era. I was watching a lot, so I was like, maybe I just missed that. But I was like, even the trailer, it looks weird. I was like,
yeah, I haven't heard anything good. And HBO Max will come out with stuff, but then they cancel some other stuff. I'm like, you guys are throwing money at stuff and not letting it stick. Just let it fester. Let it give it a moment.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked really corny. It was like just need to stop.
Yeah.
Stop. Save some of that money and give it to talented up and coming people, because
right.
That's what you're doing, but
don't just be flinging it for the hell of it.
Around. I don't understand.
And I mean, wow. I see other people doing like petitions for stuff. I'm like, oh, trust me, I'm sure they've tried everything, and networks like to do this whole "you will not sell this to other stuff." I'm like, well, you give me no choice if you cancel my thing before it comes out. You know?
Wow.
So I'm hoping the best for some of these other shows that have had to find other homes, and
yeah,
I'm looking forward to how Bosch turns out. Same thing with Lincoln Lawyer. That thing can go on a little longer, and I'm glad Netflix gave it.
So good. I'm like, no, they can't get rid of that anytime soon. If they keep writing like that, it is phenomenal. I love Lincoln Lawyer.
Totally.
It is.
Absolutely. It's happening.
Yes, it has to keep going. At least another 2 seasons, because it has so many loose ends. They need to keep going.
Yes. Oh my God. Oh, and the fact that David E. Kelly's company has just always tried to find new ways to breathe new life into something like this, instead of just everybody's going to be dating each other in the office. It's like, yeah, no, he's
exactly.
I knew something. It's kind of the oldest trick in the book. Now they get to the point where it's like, okay, I know someone did something bad, but I had no idea, you know, it was going to be this and that. And there's so many layers to it. You can't just say it was just one and done with one plot twist, you know?
Yeah. And they know how to put in, like, it's not just trauma like with Bosch.
Yes. Oh my God.
It's like, and they know how to surprise you in the right way. Because I did not know that car bomb was gonna happen. I did not know just the little moments. So they definitely know that show is chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss, yep. And
to put in the right moments, and that's what I love about that show. So
when he's first surfing, you're like, what is that about? It's like, oh, trust me.
Yeah, exactly.
There's something to this. It's
yeah. So, and I like when they put in like the little flashback memories, and so
he's
they're
a mixed guy, seeing his fancy pants dad do this, and then having his other Jewish uncle was an amusing thing, but then again, just giving all kinds of unusual personas. You know, he's following this one sex worker around he's helping get rid of all her bad apple connections, and then there's all these other people who, you know, have had everything from just realtors who aren't as clean cut as they seem, and, you know, restaurant business. Again, you know, like they're making use of all these giant LA scenarios instead of just from the headlines.
Yeah, exactly. And talk about Bosch with the textbook mommy issues, and with the textbook issues. It's just everybody with issues. It's just, but it made each one of them want to be a really great parent to their daughters. So I think that's how it shaped, you know.
Absolutely.
And into really good parents. And
it's wild how in the books he was Bosch is the half brother of the Lincoln lawyer Mickey, but
I did that. I did see that, and that's why it says that they the same metaphorical neighborhood.
Yes.
Like they're in the same neighborhood. I did read that in my research.
And but hey, you know, that's just not where the cookie crumbled. You know, Netflix bought one, Amazon bought the other. So, but I'm just glad Connelly can find some credibility, because, you know, when they were first adapting his work, you know, it was just like he had like one really bad Clint Eastwood movie that was nothing like his book, and he, instead of like other authors being outspoken, he kind of just implied, yeah, I just took the money on that one. It wasn't. But now I get to finally support my vision and make this cinematic instead of just, this is only for book fans. You know, I kudos to anybody who can adapt something complex and make all personas happy. Because even if we read a book, we want it to be someone like it, but also kind of complimentary, but not. It's just annoying when having to describe to people is like, yeah, that's fine, but it's dumbed down. Like, look at Jack Reacher. There's a big difference from the movie, which is nothing like the book.
I love the Reacher movie and the series, and I love the original movie with Tom Cruise, and I love series.
No, trust me, it's fine, but like it's a whole different oyster, you know.
I can't even imagine how different the books are. I can't even imagine.
The books are very much like every spy movie or show you kind of liked. Like, character, you know, wakes up, he doesn't know how he got here, and now he's having to get a gun and open fire at someone as they're running real fast. It's got that immediacy which matters, versus I'm fancy pants and I'm going to seduce people, and it's like no. done It doesn't work in real life. Sorry guys, this is not a fancy man's fantasy. Let's not go there. That's
hilarious.
It's just amazing. I'll see other people is like, I'll see people make empty statements like, this is too politically correct. I'm like, this is nothing like the real world, guys. Come on. And sometimes it's okay to be PC, you know? It's like, it's okay to make a show that's edgy without angering everybody, and at the same time, make a show that breaks rules without actually hurting someone. You know, just...
That's what I really like about the series, because
yes,
it's just really good action. It's just really good action. And
the characters don't feel like the same person. That can be a problem sometimes when you watch a show and they're like the same persona but stretched out to 5 people. You know? It's like, you got to just stretch out the writer's room, and kudos to Amazon for deciding this is how we're going to do it. It's like, we're going to adapt popular books and we're going to make it be an addicting, you know, 8 to 13 episode deal each season, you know? It's just...
And you're like, oh my God, what is going to happen next? Like, wait, why did that happen? Wait, why are they after this person? Wait, he's dead. Why is he dead?
Why is he dead? And every person matters, even. And just when you think they're only one episode, it's like, no, we're going to come around to this. We're going to do a flashback that's actually germane.
You're like, wait, why is he dead? Wait, who is he?
Why does he matter again? Oh, he's encompasses all this. And how's the character going to grow? How are they going to go outside their agency? And, and... So yeah, kudos where BOSCH went. I'm going to try and get other people into it because, I don't know, it seems like it's hard to pitch someone on a show. And one excuse I sometimes will hear is like, oh, I don't have any of those streaming platforms. It's like, well, what do I have to do?
Yeah, Prime has some really killer shows.
Do you need to subscribe for 2 months and then cancel?
You said what?
Do you need to subscribe for 2 months and then cancel?
No. I use my friend's Prime.
Okay, well there you go.
I use my other friend's Peacock, and then I use my other friend's Disney Plus.
There you go.
To watch the What If series on Disney Plus.
Oh, there you go. See, I do a lot of my fair share of sharing as well.
And then my friends use my Stars because, of course, I have to watch Power.
I love Stars, and yes, Power rolls.
And
that would be a cool crossover. BOSCH comes to New York and encounters all the crooked attorneys. Like, honey, I need your help.
And my friends are also using my Paramount Plus.
I borrowed my uncle's. It's so funny. We got Spectrum. My dad's like, we got free Paramount Plus. I'm like, yeah, but
my Spectrum account because most of my friends don't have cable.
Oh, there you go. So there you go. Hey,
oh yeah.
All these TV universes, man, they're still kicking butt. They're still staying relevant.
Yep.
I think they'll last a while because they're not. It's funny, the people who I encountered who knew about these kinds of shows, they were a mix of both people who would like that kind of thing and then aren't the crowd, but it surprised them. It got them hooked somehow. It just all of this material we've discussed tonight found a way to keep it fresh and sharp. And I'm always impressed by who I find who is into this kind of stuff. I'm like, interesting. Wow, I had no idea you were into that. You should have told me.
Yeah. And then I can't wait for all of my Dick Wolf shows to come back next week. So
there you go, man. There you go. They're still staying as strong as they can. I applaud anyone who can try and
it's probably going to be the most viewed they've had in probably a year because they're having the crossover event. You know, every time crossover event, the fans get crazy. So.
Well, and I'm for it because there's nothing. I've seen so many bad crossovers, but then when I see people who do it so well, it's like you can take up as much as my time and waste as much of it as you want. Now you've earned it. Instead of because the CBS shows would do that and be like, these guys don't get along together, and it doesn't work. These guys, they're in the same universe, so. Do you have anything else you'd like to plug?
We're excited.
That's great. Do you have anything else you'd like to plug?
No, I'm good. Just follow me at Diverse Toons on X, Facebook, LinkedIn, and yeah, that's it. And you can go check us out at diversetoons.com.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a jacked up